Today I'm going to give you a brief introduction to investments and securities in Kenya. Now, to begin with, what is an investment? That is our basic question that we'll seek to analyze and find an answer in today's segment. The first question we ask ourselves, how do we manage our investments? We manage our investments by being wise and forming a strategy that will meet our needs and requirements. Investment process involves 5 key steps. Now, these steps vary from one individual to another, mainly because our investments also vary from one person to another. But the 5 key steps include: you have to invest, put your investment objectives from the very beginning. Do I want to build a house? Do I want my children to go to school? Do you want to buy a new car? Do I want to get a mortgage? All these things have different investment objectives and therefore will require different investment strategies. The second thing we look at is creating a policy, a discipline, a level of integrity that will make us understand why we're here. Let's take, for example, you want to buy a new car. You've seen the new car in town and you love it. What do? Do you have the money? And if you have the money, how do you go about buying this car? Do you go with cash or do you pay via M-Pesa? All these things, investment policy is the bottom line. And then the third thing, I think, which is the most important thing, is now constructing our portfolio. We know the car we want. Where do we get it? Do we go to Toyota Kenya? Do we go to Japan? Do we buy it second-hand? All these questions, this is our portfolio. Yourself, how you invest your money. You are the portfolio. So we have to be wise on where we put our resources. If we waste our resources, then we waste our money. And then the fourth thing, we construct and evaluate ourselves. Let me give you a good example. There is no need to put in a lot of effort into something and not want to know the result. You have to evaluate it. You have to understand what made it work, what made it fail. All this are very integral into our investment strategy. I'll give you another example. It's the end of the month. You're getting your salary. You have your basic needs right, your housing, your shelter, your food. And then what do you do next? Maybe you decide to have a bit more fun, or you decide to save. It's still your money, but at the end of it all, we have to evaluate how we've used it, because money has no owners, only spenders. We've spoken a lot about the strategy. Now we want to look about the assets, the actual assets, where we put our money. What is an asset? Think about it. What do you think when you hear the term asset? An asset could be anything that gives you a return in value. Let me see if I have an asset in my pocket. I have an asset. It's my wallet. Does it give me value? Yes, it does. If I lose my wallet, I have lost value. So we can generalize an asset as anything that gives an investor additional value to them. Now, there are 4 key assets in the Kenyan market. And we begin by the very first one, and the simplest of all, shares. A share is an equally held unit of entitlement. How many of us are in Chamas? How many of us are in investment groups? We own shares in these institutions we're in. We are part owners. That is the meaning of being a shareholder. Whenever you hear someone say, I am a shareholder in this and this company, it means they basically own a bit of that company. A tiny bit. It may be small, but it's still ownership. That is the most common thing we talk about when we talk about shares. The second one, and the most important one, is cash. You know, there's a saying that goes like, cash is king. I'll give you an example. If I was to promise you 500,000 Kenyan shillings today, or 1 million Kenyan shillings in a month, what would you take? Stay tuned for the answer at the end of the program. I'm sure it's a very simple question, but it splits opinion. We've spoken about cash being king. Cash is a very important element in our investments. If you have no money, then you have nothing to spend. You have nothing to buy to eat. You're in debt if you've borrowed. But the key thing is that cash. Because at the end of the day, it is the ultimate value that shows what you're really worth. Now, cash can be invested in very, very interesting ways. And a very interesting way, a very key way, is a bank deposit. I know nowadays we all have a level of accounting in us. You have an M-Pesa account, you have bank account, you have a Chama account. All these things are levels of accounting. They may look simple, but they're very basic and very integral. Now, what is a bank deposit? A bank deposit is basically any money held in any bank licensed by the Central Bank of Kenya. Any money in any account is in cash form. That is what the bank claims to have in their assets. So cash is still king. Even in this day of digital money, there's M-Pesa, there's Bitcoin, there's e-transfer. Everything is still around, but cash is still top of the pile. The third asset I want to talk about today is called a bond. What do you understand by the word bond? When someone comes and tells you, my word is my bond, what do you understand by that? Now, simply, a bond is a gentleman's agreement. It is an agreement on the basis that I, as a borrower, will repay you your money in the future at a level of interest. Let me give you an example. We've spoken about the car earlier. You want to buy this car, assuming it costs 1.5 million Kenyan shillings, and you only have 500,000 shillings. So you need another million Kenyan shillings. You go to a bank and you say, guys, I love this car. I want it. Could you please lend me some money? Now, in this case, you, the borrower, are an accountant to the bank. What does this mean? They will tell you this. We'll give you 1 million Kenyan shillings for a year at this level of interest. Now, that is a bond. So basically, a bond is an IOU. I owe you some money. You need to pay back. Think of a friend who owes you some money. You took them out to lunch. They didn't pay back. They say they'll pay back. They say they need a little money. They'll pay back. Still nothing. Now that is an IOU. They are bound to you. And that is the basic definition of a bond. We'll get much into detail in the next segment. Our fourth investment asset class is called real estate. Real estate and property. Now, this is something that is very inherent in us. As Kenyans, when we think about investment, our first thought goes to real estate. And why is that? We're always trying to say, you know what, I built myself a house, have a bit of land, I think I'm set in terms of investing. Why do we think about this? This is why. Real estate is a very important asset class in which, as Kenyans, we need to invest in or are investing in. As you look around Nairobi, the skyline has changed. Once what was a green expanse of the forest, the Ngong Forest, is now no more. The national park is hidden up there in the hills. But what do we see? We see an industrial park. Tall buildings coming up every day in Upper Hill, others in Westlands. All these skyscrapers coming up. That is real estate. That is an asset. That is a good asset that is bringing people income. Now, what do we think about when we think about real estate? The two kinds of real estate is either residential real estate or commercial real estate. We'll get back into the details on that a bit later.